Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Stories, candid conversations with my cousin all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida in the US, Lauren Britz. Hello, Lauren. How are you?
Good morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. If you're in South Africa, good afternoon. And if you're in America, good morning. I'm doing really well. I'm enjoying the change of weather. It's about to become exceptionally hot. And hydrating myself with a little lemon water this morning.
Yeah, we're feeling the cold heading wonderfully on at us in South Africa. And sadly, Cape Town is burning. So
I saw this.
There was a huge fire that erupted, and so much is burning, and libraries and places of like historical places, and there's so much, and it's quite sad.
And just for the context of Americans, they know Cape Town, that's for sure. Everybody knows Cape Town. But yeah. I did remind somebody yesterday that Cape Town is essentially built around that mountain. Yeah. So if that mountain's burning, it could be unbelievably devastating. And what happened anyway?
Well, like they're not sure about what's happened, but they are, they're assuming that someone actually started the fire. From where it was and how it happened and everything. So it is a little bit sad to think that, like people don't have better things to do with their lives than because it's impacting the entire city again, so they have volunteers and animals on the mountain, and it's the entire Cape Town is being affected by it. So,
and not to mention just the beautiful mountain itself, it's so crazy. So that's quite interesting. That may be the first time I've ever seen that happen on Table Mountain. So I've obviously seen it happen here. It happened not too long ago in Malibu, where basically every celebrity that lived in Malibu lost their home. And that was unbelievably devastating. In fact, I think the South African firefighters came over here to help with that at that time, which was amazing. Yeah. So, yes.
So today, if you just joined us, today we are going to be chatting about an interesting conversation, which when I started researching this, I was going, wow, I don't think it's, I have an interesting take on it. But if you have joined us, guys, we are chatting about vulnerability, celebrating others and our own successes, but allowing vulnerability into the workplace and maybe, considering vulnerability as a superpower.
Oh, yeah.
So that, off the bat, when I first started reading and I was thinking about it, I was thinking, I'm a gay man, and the assumption is that you all emotional and wrapped up in it. And I when I'm maybe I suppose when I'm with my daughter or when I'm in my relationship, I might be vulnerable, but as a general rule, I'm kind of not. I'm kind of I just don't want to do it. I'm is that how do you experience it as a just a topic?
I love this topic, and one of the reasons I love it is because I do prescribe to the idea that vulnerability is a superpower. And the reason for this is I've often been frustrated by not being able to express myself. And over the years, in a few things I've done, and, we're always trying to better ourselves, I've learned that vulnerability is not a lot of things that we think it is, and we'll probably get into what people think it is versus what it really is. But for me, I tend to be a little bit more vulnerable. Amongst people, it is a superpower for me. I'm also not afraid of slightly uncomfortable moments. Something about it gives me energy. I don't go out to create the moment, but I'm the kind of person that can walk into a room and tell people something vulnerable or expose a part of myself because I don't want to hide it. Yeah. And then, people sometimes pull back and they're like, whoa, it's a little vulnerable. But I love it. I love exposing my vulnerabilities because I don't see them as what people often see as, overcompensating or maybe you know, being too sensitive or dramatic or whatever it is that people are coining vulnerability as, you know. But vulnerability, and we're going to discuss it now, is a very different thing than what most people think it is. And I love the article we're reading today. It's by Mark Manson. Amazing article. Couldn't have come at a better time, to be honest.
Yeah, and you know, like,
yeah.
The queen of vulnerability, like I'm sure she's the queen of is Brené Brown. I mean, everybody knows Brené Brown. And,
yes.
you know, she says vulnerability is about showing up and being seen. It's tough to do that when we're terrified about what people might see or think. And, you know, when you put it that, when I read that, then I think the Lunchtime series, you know, like having this show for me has been an incredible embrace of vulnerability, even though you know, I sometimes feel like I'm like, yeah, it's not something I want to like just be soft and gentle. But I think that's also probably from a you know our family's way of growing up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I think that you hit a really important point there. A lot of people grow up in a generational time in families that prescribe to that generational thinking. You know, I mean, it's so common.
Yeah, you're weak.
You know, seen, not heard. We don't talk about it. You know, so that in theory, then we hide it. We don't say we hide it. We say we don't talk about it. You know, any sort of vulnerability is often considered weakness, like you say, right? And that is so absolutely not accurate at all. I think we have taken those moments and called it vulnerability when they actually have other names to them. So it'll be interesting to dig into all of that for sure. And I will say, Kev, like this is a vulnerable platform. You know, we're having a candid conversation. We share things. We're having candid conversations about things that people are like worrying about, thinking about, concerned about, that they don't want to really open up and speak about always. And I think it's a really amazing, powerful thing to be able to have that conversation in a space without any, I mean, we don't know what people are thinking. The truth is we don't even really know. We know how many people will be listening, but we don't know who's listening. We don't know the reach of our vulnerability. And I mean, at the end of the day, here we are sitting having a conversation and, you know, 20 million people could be listening and judging us. We're like, well, you know, this is my vulnerability, and if you don't like it, that's okay. We can be uncomfortable in that moment.
And I think I'm willing to take that chance, because I think, you know, I think it's like wisdom of the ages. Like the older you get, the better you become at it. And I'm
like your fine whiskey you're drinking.
Yeah, you know, and I think even you know, when I looked at the topic or the subject that we like really like adding to this is, you know, bringing, celebrating others and your own success. And I think, you know, on that note, like just before we started chatting today, the topic of why do we sometimes find that we have to negotiate or find ourselves in a position where we can't be vulnerable with our friends based on the fact that there's some kind of jealousy or there's some kind of and you know, I've had that so many times where I'm kind of going like, why are you not happy for me? Like I don't understand why you can't just be happy for me. I'm doing well. I'm doing so goddamn well. I'm like, you know, I'm doing so much and I'm impacting so many lives. Why can't you just be happy? And then you kind of go, hang on, you know, maybe there's a bigger underlying theme here that's going on and you don't realize it's, and then you kind of go like, how does that affect my vulnerability? Because I'm going like, am I willing to be vulnerable now? And that sort of, I think that also plays a part in like where you feel like, where you think you can trust someone and you want to just be happy because you're doing well, and you can't celebrate it.
I've had this feeling before. I'm sure it will come again. You know, we all have different people in our lives. And I will say that I don't shy away from my vulnerability. I also use it to express myself. Like, for example, I can't remember the last time I had a birthday cake. And my birthday's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people around me that apparently love me. I know this. And yet I've still never seen the birthday cake show up.
Yeah.
So instead of being like, oh, well, they don't love me and, you know, they won't bring me a birthday cake, I actually asked, guys, is there a particular reason you've never brought a birthday cake around for me and put candles on it and, yay, happy birthday? There's no particular reason other than the thought that maybe I wouldn't really like it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just reminding you all that I'm turning 40 now, and there best be a cake and there best be 40 candles on it. Or else, do not leave that cake in the fridge. You bring it out and you come sing to me. And I know that sounds crazy.
I believe in that,
You know, the truth is, I'm turning 40. I want to celebrate. I want my cake. And for some reason, they thought I didn't want one.
Yeah.
So I just said it because I thought, no, this has got to be a reason. This is also vulnerability. I mean, I'm not being weird when I say I'm not being a princess. I'm just saying, you know, I want to be celebrated. Please use this as an opportunity to celebrate me, my life, my successes. And when your birthday comes around and every other day, you know, that something amazing happens, we do the same for you. And we really should celebrate each other a lot more, you know, absolutely.
But I think what I can say about that, because I'm like, like we've spoken about our families before, but like, I think, you know, I choose who I am vulnerable around. I'm very specific about that. But also, you know, to the point that you mentioned with, you know, Mark Manson speaking about vulnerability, and you know, the point that he mentions here is vulnerability is the key to better relationships. But I read through some of the points he makes, and he touches on some really interesting points, and I've noticed people do this, and I kind of steer away from this very first point, where he says you constantly fall into boring conversation topics because they're safe and shallow, and you don't have to take the risk of offending or inciting anyone. And you know what, like, it was the quickest way to get me to like avoid like even being in the room with you, is to like go, okay, let's just have safe, comfortable conversations all the time. And I'm like, oh, like, no, let's talk about like things that matter, you know, like let's have insightful conversation and disagree and agree to disagree. And
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And often I've said and I've wondered, why am I so agitated with this person? And I've come to realize I have a group of friends who I absolutely adore them.
Yeah.
But my vulnerability is not allowed in the circle because this circle doesn't do drama. So they see my vulnerability as drama. It's really not dramatic. Me speaking about something I feel should not be labeled overly dramatic. I do understand that there's a balance. I mean, you don't want to come to your friends and just be Debbie Downer all day long and like call them for every crisis. Like, you need to handle your own life. But if I have something I want to say and we're friends, you take all my good energy from me. Why can't I have a moment of vulnerability where we discuss? It's not about, and then they also, the other label is it's gossip. We really need to change. I understand gossip as mean girls. Oh, look at what she did. Oh, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm like, I have an issue with somebody. That's not gossip. That's, please help me figure this out. I'm being vulnerable. You're my friend and I need you. That's very different.
Yeah.
You know, and then also boring conversation. Like, I'm not good with small talk because I find it really shallow. You know, in order to have a deep conversation, it doesn't have to be, you know, about something that's difficult. It can be, you know, talking about spirituality. It can be talking about gardening. You know, it can be talking about science, engineering, whatever else. But I agree with you. Often the topics are shallow, and I'm like, can we get a little bit further than where we always go? Like, we've been friends for 10 years. Can we talk about something else? Something a little deeper? You know, can we get closer?
And also, like, what I've noticed about friendships is how it evolves as you grow, you know.
That's true.
And friendships that I've had in the last 10 years are very different to the friendships I have now. And purely based on the fact that I'm in such a different place in my world, and there's different conversations happening, the growth that I have in my life. Do you know, there's so much happening. And like one of the points that that's mentioned here is, and I laugh because I think, I've seen people in the situation where they're just stuck in a job, and you truly doing something that they absolutely don't enjoy, because people always told you that you have it was a good idea and you didn't want to upset or disappoint anybody. And I remember from being like big, and sort of sticking my heels in the ground, going, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care if you don't like it. I'm like, just, so, this is something
how rebellious of you.
Yeah. As if that was like the biggest, kind of avoidance that we should have had in our family. And I was like, why? Like, I just want to do what I want to do. Like, why can't I just do that?
And this is why people like us are born sometimes, because we don't go with the status quo. The status quo in our family communication doesn't suddenly work for us. We are the rebels labeled, because we're like, well, hold on, that doesn't work for me. And then you say it out loud, and there's often a repercussion, or somebody's judging you, or somebody doesn't like you, or somebody doesn't agree with you. The truth is that you come to your own sensations. You can't keep denying yourself in this way. You can try for as long as you want, but it will come back around, in the sense that what you want is important. And I did the same. Well, I did both in a way. It took me maybe 30 years to admit that in my childhood and my teenage years, I actually did care exceptionally a lot about what people thought about me. Yeah. I always would say, I don't care what you think about me. But the truth was, deep down inside, I cared so much. I just wanted to be loved and cared for and listened to and realized. And as you grow older, that becomes more authentic. You start realizing, I do care. Why do I care? And then you start realizing that we all have a life. We all have choices to make. But my vulnerability is important, not to attack people with it, not to make them wrong, but to show parts of myself that I no longer want to keep hidden. There's so many people who really have no idea who I am. They've known me for 10, 20 years, and they really have not seen, the extra layers. Why that is, it's because of how our relationships show up. You're not just going to be vulnerable with everybody. If they feel uncomfortable with it, super uncomfortable, you're going to take your time with it. But absolutely.
One of the other things that he mentions here is dressing extremely well makes you feel uncomfortable. Now, when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, I've always taken such pride in how I look. And, I remember getting my tattoos, and everyone, the tattoo artist was tattooing my daughter's name on my arm. And he said, are you sure you want it in this direction? Because then you can't show people what it says. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this so people can read me. I'm doing this because I want my daughter's name on my body. She's important to me. It's for me. It's not about anyone else.
Right.
And like, oh, so even in the way that I read her name on my arm, I kind of go, it's there for me. It's not there so you can read it. It's for me. So when you kind of, and it's funny how, that point you kind of take for granted. You kind of go, I've never really thought of people can't be vulnerable based on the fact that they don't want to get dressed too nicely in case someone points it out. Or
I'm gonna be super vulnerable right now about that topic. Yeah. And people listening, anybody could take this in a very opposite direction, what I'm about to say. But let's get with the current times, right? Yeah. Meanings to things have changed. But I've, for many reasons, which has nothing to do with how I look, nothing to do with anything about my physicality, right? But I often am extraordinarily careful about how I show up in clothing. For some reason, I can often draw a crowd and it's not a crowd you want to necessarily draw. People, there seems to be another element hanging around that latches on, it like gets a glimpse of you, latches on, and doesn't let go. So I've had so many of these experiences, being stalked, being harassed. I get harassed. If you go and check out my Instagram, I got a whole story section of men, you know, typing me things because they saw me wearing a bikini in my, you know, I'm not going to stop wearing what I want, but I'm going to be lying if I said I didn't think about where I'm going and exactly what I think I should put on my body, which actually really grinds me, because I should be able to wear whatever I want, and I can. But I also don't want to show up and be harassed. And so I've started becoming more vulnerable in protecting myself. When somebody says something to me, like on the golf course, oh, well, somebody said something. I said we were playing with my boyfriend and a friend, and he said to me, the fourth person on our time said, oh, I guess I should be careful about what I say about you then. And I said, no, you should be careful what you say about me, because I'm standing here. I'm going to be the one kicking your ass, not these two. So, and very politely I did that. And then we played 18, holes of golf. Yeah. But the shock, like, I'm not here for your pleasure. So again, now I've got to think, am I wearing hot shorts?
And even the way that you've sort of shared that now, it just shows how a man experiences it in terms of how a woman experiences it, because that doesn't occur in a man's world. Like, we don't kind of go, oh, I wonder if anyone's going to like really have a wonderful, great opinion about this beautiful tight shirt, or, it doesn't even come up. Like, often doesn't come up that men even have to have this conversation.
But the truth is, he wasn't being rude. He was actually a really nice guy. But what he didn't realize was, what you're saying is so out of date, dude. Like, check yourself. You're not doing me a favor by checking me up. I mean, it's hard enough to hit the freaking ball as it is. Now I got to deal with the men on the course, because there's obviously not too many women. And why not? Because they're too vulnerable, they feel, to come and play. And I'm like, go and take your vulnerability to the golf course. Don't make it stop you from going. Take it there, because we need more of it. And, it's vulnerable to walk up to a grown man and say, excuse me, I'm not okay with this, because you get labeled so many things, frigid and like old school. I'm like, no, this is new school, not frigid. My body. Yeah,
I just want to raise this point. I was watching, because like for my brain interruption moment, I watch Married at First Sight, which is really interesting, because it's like, you just see a whole bunch of people and human behavior and how it plays out. It's like, it's really interesting. So, and I love human behavior. So I'm always paying attention to how people show up. And someone used the word frigid to describe one of the women. And one of the experts also plain simply just brought it to someone's attention. When you brought it to a man's attention, when you use that word for about a woman, it is misogynistic and completely sexist. So
you go, guys.
You should not actually use that word to describe anybody, especially a woman. And I was like, wow, what a good sort of. Like,
now you can see. I mean, that's amazing, right? And I'm so glad to hear that. But now you can see why it's so difficult for humans in general to be vulnerable. You come across, you say, no, stop harassing me, and then they call frigid, as though those two things are somehow correlated. It's actually extremely manipulative and maybe even a little narcissistic. It's so people are like, well, I don't want to give the wrong impression, so I'm just going to sit back here and, not care, not say what I need to say, not be seen. No, I'm going to, as we go, and it happened the other day with Christian, my dear love. He said something that had been drummed into his head over many years. It wasn't his fault. Yeah. He's a very lovely person. And I just said to him, Even the girl he said it to was like, oh, I'm not offended. Because not being offended is cool. That means you're cool, because You didn't take
Yeah,
offense
I
to
don't.
that misogynistic. And I'm like,
you
no.
have to, right? Yeah.
Like, this has got nothing, and I said to her, it's got nothing to do with you. It has to do with thinking and changing the thinking for his children over time.
Yeah,
because we can't perpetuate that.
So another one that he brings up is, which I've come across with loads of people. Smiling at strangers makes you feel creepy. And I've
especially
so
men.
many times, yeah, but I've just so many times been in a shopping mall and kind of looked at someone thinking, or looking at them thinking, sure, maybe like you could do with a smile, and then you smile at them, and they don't know what to do. They're like, oh my God, he's smiling. I was like, well, don't look at him. Like, and I'm like, just smile. It's easy to do. You know, it's easier than frowning.
We do it a lot around here. We're always talking to strangers and stuff. But I guess it is really difficult sometimes, especially if you've had past experiences, to, navigate who to smile at and who not to smile at. So, but I do think a nice human smile, like you're walking around, you chat. I mean, we were in the nail salon the other day getting a pedicure, and we met these two lovely ladies from the island, St. Martin, who lived up in New York. And, we spent the next 20 minutes just talking, smiling at each other. And it was amazing. We felt so good. But I guess it is difficult sometimes. You don't know who to smile at. You're like, you got to gauge it a little.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the last point that I think is really the biggest one for everyone is the idea of asking someone out that openly scares you because of the possible rejection. And I remember I got to a point where I was kind of going, do you know what? I just don't care anymore. Like, I really think you're hot and I really want to go on a date. Kind of. And I remember with Eugene, like we were having a moment and we're like having drinks and everything. And I said to him, and it just like hit me like a ton of bricks in the moment. I said to him, so do you go on dates? And he's like, yeah, I go on dates. I'm like, so do you want to go on a date? And I remember in that moment, it was kind of awkward. But I remember thinking, you know what, just do it. I mean, the worst that he could say is no. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah.
I think that, and I love it as well when women ask men out. I don't think that is a weird thing at all. I think it's actually really sexy, to be honest. And, people can't always tell if you're with somebody else. I mean, not everybody's wearing a wedding ring, And so to ask gives you a clear direction on where to go next. And I think it's very sexy. It shows that you're very comfortable with yourself and you're okay. If he says no, you carry on. Like, what's the big deal, I think it's very cool.
Yeah, and bringing it back around to this whole point of, so how do we use vulnerability as a superpower? And I think it really speaks to that whole, like, so how well do you do you, and how well do you know you? Because right. I think when you really start paying attention to what it is you love, what it is you appreciate about yourself, you really start understanding that it's okay if someone says no. It's okay if, and as much as it's a difficult conversation or it's something that you might be scared of doing, vulnerability can be used as a superpower. So here's the question. So how do you use vulnerability as a superpower in your world, in your day, in your life, in your business? How does it show up for you?
I would say it shows up in a lot of ways. There's a lot in my business and in my world. I'm all for the truth serum and the honesty, but delivery is so important. So I use my vulnerability as a superpower to create spaces where I can deliver news, whether good, bad, ugly, weird. And I try not to deliver it in a space of judgment, right? So, if I want to celebrate what I'm doing today, I'll put a post out and be like, look what I did. Look what I did, guys. Clap for me. Yay.
Yeah.
Or I'll be like, look, I'm struggling with something today. This is the one that people struggle with the most. And you can tell. You'll see the likes, the interactions, they all switch. But I still love it because it makes people a little uncomfortable. It just makes them think. And maybe I'm relating to a lot of people, and I know I am. It's okay for me to go out and say, look, you know, I'm struggling. Like on Sunday, we struggled on the golf course with a ranger. That was essentially part of the learning of golf. It was like meditation, you know. It taught me a lot. But I didn't run away from what happened. You know, I looked at it and I went, well, that happened. He could have done that better. I could have done this better. That is, vulnerability can take you to the next level, to the next step, if only you will allow the moment. Because to me, it's not personal. It's, you know, like we're vulnerable, all of us. It's just how we move around that and how much we share of that. And the third thing I would say is in my friendships and my relationships, I have been lately a lot more vocal, whether they like it or not, about how I'm feeling about my friendships.
Yeah.
You know, the other day somebody asked me, what happened to us? Well, you've been telling me.
Wow. That's such a loaded question.
What happened to us after a bottle of whiskey? Because couldn't ask me before the bottle of whiskey, and I don't blame this person. I know the person and I'm not saying you have to be vulnerable. I mean, if you're not there yet, take it slow, take it one day at a time. You know, open up slowly, show what you can, what feels strong, and keep what you don't want to share. But my answer was, you've been telling me for the last 5 years that you don't care about certain things that I want to talk about. And I don't know what else you're labeling it as. So all I know is you don't care. So I distanced myself. And now I have a good time friend instead of a, you know,
connected friend.
A close friend. But that level of vulnerability right there brought us a little closer together, back to where we used to be, or back to the place we actually both want to be with each other. So I do use this in my friendships. They don't always like it, but they do listen, and I think they pay attention.
Yeah, you know, for me, I think I like myself.
Yay!
Do you know what I mean?
Me too.
You know, when people when you have alone moments, I am like 110% happy on being like completely alone. Like it doesn't bug me. I don't kind of go, oh God, like, well, what am I going to do? Like, oh, I need, like, I don't panic about it. I'm like, yay. And alone time for me, yeah, it means like beautiful connection with nature, you know, and I absolutely love myself. Like it's like, and I practice that, you know, and I think because I do, I'm willing, and that's how I relate back to I think I have two measurements in my life at the moment where I look at my daughter, and I kind of use her as like an unspoken kind of reasoning soundboard, because, you know, like kids will tell you the truth. You know?
Yes, they will.
You know, and she'll say, no, you're just like, you're being so impatient right now. Like she'll just say it, like to my face. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I am. I'm sorry.
She's smart.
I mean, and the other thing is, you know, the Lunchtime series, like putting myself in front of people, knowing that, you know, I don't have all the answers to everything, knowing that I like I can have really good conversations, and sometimes I have really terrible conversations, and I'm okay. I'm still okay with just doing that, you know. And
well, it's because you're working towards something, you know, and that's the way to get there, you know, for anybody.
So, you know, yeah, I think vulnerability, as much as it's scary, it's so necessary.
I think so.
Right?
I think so. Absolutely. I mean, especially in a world like today, the world we're living in today, nobody really has a freaking clue what's going on, I think. We all think we do, so that we can organize our worlds. But I think what's become very important to me during these times is my close friendships, which is why I'm being more vulnerable to them, because I want them closer to me, and work, you know. I think that sets a person apart often. authenticity, because it speaks straight into your authenticity, and people can relate to that even if they can't describe it. They relate in here to it. They're like, something about that made me. Yeah. So I mean, like you say, it's everything you say. And children, if you have children, it's probably a really good soundboard.
It is. It's like you want the truth, like this truth sounding stick. It's like, just ask your child what they think about you. Ask your child if you're doing well, or ask your child, like, am I a good person? Like, they will tell you, like, sometimes you're like, what?
Well, when you hysterical.
Like I use my daughters, like, like if she goes, no, Dad, like, I need to tell you this, and I'm like, okay, then I take it in, and I'm like, okay, cool.
You're like, okay,
listen. Yeah,
I'm listening.
Yeah, I know. Well, so thank you for chatting with me tonight.
Thanks, Kev.
I mean, it's here tonight, but day there. And if we want to get a hold of you, where do we go?
Well, the exciting thing is I am headed back to South Africa in June, the end of June and July. And I'll be back there for work. So I'm super, super duper excited about that. You can get hold of me at www.laurenbritzphotography.com. If you want to talk about any branding for your business, personal branding, or any product branding, you can just go on there, www.laurenbritzphotography.com, click on 30 minutes complimentary consultation, and we can chat about what you want to do. I think it will be amazing. I'm looking forward to it.
Guys, and if you want to know more about the Lunchtime series, happening every weekday on eBizRadio.com at 12 o'clock. And Lunchtime #conversations, or candid conversations with my cousin, every Friday at 12 o'clock. So check it out. And if you want to get a hold of me, just Google it. Lots, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, and chat to you later.
Have an amazing week ahead, Kev. Chat to you very soon.
Cheers. Bye.